Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to What's Happening. My name is Chloe Cooley, and this is a show where I'm just going to interview a bunch of different people and hear their opinions. So today, here with me, I have Dr. Paul Beasley. Dr. Beasley, thank you so much for coming on.
Good morning, Chloe. I'm happy to be here. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah. So can you tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Well, my name's Paul Beasley. I'm a professor of U.S. history, late 19th, early 20th century history, and I'm department head of history and foreign languages.
Yeah. So where are you from?
I am, unlike most people in Alabama who have lived the same place forever. We moved all over. I was born in Lincoln, Nebraska, and then lived in way upstate New York, 40 miles from Montreal, and then moved to Raleigh. So I grew up in Raleigh, North Carolina, and graduated high school there, Go State, and then went undergraduate at Appalachian State in the mountains of North Carolina.
Wow. So yeah, you have moved around a lot. I cannot say that. I've traveled, but where I grew up and lived is an hour away from here. So
Well, right, and this is one of the things. I'm a Southern historian by training. This is one of the things that makes the South unique, is that unlike the rest of the country, we don't Southerners don't move around nearly as much, right? I mean, my mom was born in Washington State and grew up in California. My dad was born in New Mexico and grew up in Colorado. They met in California, and then, I'm born in Nebraska. My one brother's born in California, and one brother's born in New York. So that's kind of more typical. And then I come here and meet people that are living in the same county as their parents, their grandparents, their great-great-grandparents, right?
yep, that's how it goes. I mean, I have aspirations to move for sure, but I don't know if it'll ever happen. As much as I might want it to, I'm a little bit attached to the South, probably.
Well, there's a lot of different places within the South, right? There are very many different Souths. And it's hard when you move, particularly if you don't know anyone. It's always easier if there's someone ahead of you, and sort of so that you can crash on their couch or, help you to get around initially. That makes it a lot easier. But moving away, right out of college, this is the time to move away. And if you're meant to come back, you'll come back. That's kind of how I look at it.
Yeah, that's probably pretty true. I don't know, it's kind of difficult to move away, but I would also be excited if I had
Right.
the opportunity to.
My daughter's a senior, and she's 22, but she would move away in a heartbeat. In fact, all she does is talk about moving away. But she wasn't born here, and we don't have oodles of family all around, so that makes it a different kind of thing. It's nice to grow up with everybody, with a lot of family. I did not have any relatives east of the Mississippi when I was growing up. Any on the eastern
Wow.
third of the U.S., right? And so we never went to see cousins or stuff. Every 4 years, we'd drive out west and see my grandparents. But
Wow, that's crazy to me because my parents live 20 seconds from my grandmother.
Right.
So, like, literally, it's right up the road. So that's crazy to me, for sure. So, where did you say that you went to college for your undergrad?
So I went to Appalachian State, which at the time was about the size of Jacksonville State, up there in the mountains of North Carolina. I loved it. About 9,000 students. Of course, it's like 22 now. I mean, I don't think I could get in. In fact, the next year after I went to Appalachian, they started an essay. You had to write an essay to get in, and so I missed that, luckily. But that was sort of the ideal place. It was three and a half hours from home, so it was close enough to get back to do laundry and to pick up some food every couple weeks, but never had to worry about my parents dropping by unannounced.
Yeah, that's something for sure. I mean, I'm only an hour away from my parents, and it's an hour like on a day with traffic. On a good day, you can get there in like 45
So
minutes.
have they just dropped in? Your mom just came by and said, "Oh, I was thinking about you.
No.
I brought you a casserole."
No, but they also have my 2 younger siblings that do like 3 sports each, so they don't have the time for that,
Right.
really.
Right.
They are busy bees.
Well, it's a different world too, because I'm sure that you talked to your folks already today, or you did
I'm
last
just
night.
texting my mom.
Yeah, exactly, right? And with cell phones, we're in communication with each other so much. I mean, when I was an undergrad, you talked to your parents once a week.
Yeah, that. Sometimes I only call my mom like once a week, but most of the time it's probably more than that.
Right. And then text
Oh yeah,
all day. Right? Yeah.
I text her a lot, just funny pictures or anything like that.
Right. My daughter does too. My wife and daughter are talking all day long.
It definitely makes things easier.
It sure is different because, I mean, I had to figure out stuff on my own. I mean, what do you do when you don't have a phone to call for help? I mean, you have to figure it out on your own, right?
I could not imagine, like, my parents, they always talk about, like, how they didn't have technology. I don't know how y'all knew how to do anything. Like,
Well-
what if you need to change your tire? I don't even know how to change my tire, but now I can just pull up a YouTube video.
My grandmother used to tell a story that her father would not let her drive until she could change a tire. And where she was growing up in the high Sierras of California, she didn't need a license. There wasn't anybody going to stop her. But but that was the basic rule. You can't drive until they weren't worried about learning to drive, right? What lane that kind of was change the tire for just this reason. When you, particularly as a woman, you're out, you've got to be able to handle these things. You don't know what kind of trouble you can get in.
Yep. But that's why I have a boyfriend. And I don't ever drive myself anywhere. He
Well,
always
I've
drives
met
me
your
places.
boyfriend. Does he know how to change a tire?
Yes.
Okay.
I can say that quite confidently, I would say. He did fail me one time, but that was not his fault.
All right. Well, I'm sure we'll hear from him now that we're questioning his ability to change tires.
Yeah, he'll probably tell me. He'll be like, why did you say that?
That's right.
So, what did you get your degree in?
Well, as an undergraduate, I went to get a degree in accounting. I had done a lot of accounting in high school. I'd taken 2 years of accounting. They had this program in Raleigh called Junior Achievers, and it is to get high school students interested in being entrepreneurs. So they come together in little groups and come up with a product idea, and then they've got a business person that's mentoring them. And I was on the accounting team, and we audited everybody to see whether they'd made money. I really thought I was going to be a CPA and make money. And then I failed business calculus my second semester. And then I took business calculus again, and it was a 4-hour class. I went to the library every day after class and did my homework, and I only made a 78, a C. And Appalachian averaged the grades, so now I had a D. But I was like, wow, this really stinks. Am I going to be happy? What kind of job satisfaction am I going to have from being a CPA? And so I decided I needed to do something that I enjoyed. And I'd always loved history. I'd been in honors history, Western Civ, as my freshman. And so I had a fantastic Western Civ teacher, and so took some of his classes. Ended up majoring in history and then in political journalism. I thought I was going to I wanted to be a newspaper editorialist. Write political columns on politics. I've always been really interested in politics. For those of you who don't know, Raleigh is the state capital, and it was probably about the size of Montgomery when I grew up. So I was I went to school with the governor's daughter, who is running for lieutenant governor in North Carolina now. So I was always a political animal. I was a big fan of George Will, so I thought, I'll be George Will. And I graduated and went to work on my uncle's ranch. So that wasn't really using my degree much. He fired me from the ranch. It's the only, I think it's the only job I got fired from. There were a handful of jobs where it's not clear whether I was fired or I quit. But I got fired from work in my Uncle John's ranch and came back and waited tables and cooked and bar-backed and washed dishes and worked on a golf course. You know, all the things that a history major does after school. And then about 5 years, I decided to go back and get my graduate degrees.
Yeah, that's that's so funny. My mom actually went to school for accounting. I think her actual degree is banking. I'm sure she'll correct me, but that was something that she was interested in too. So,
yeah, you could make a lot of money, but you're looking for people's mistakes. And then, the high point of your day is that both columns balance. And I was just like, I don't know how much job satisfaction that'll give me. Instead, right, my job satisfaction is I had a student the other day bring up something that they had learned a couple years ago, or watching students graduate, or finding out that they've gotten jobs and are using, their degrees. That I get a lot more job satisfaction out of that, I think.
I can see that for sure. You're very involved. Like, just in the example of my boyfriend, you're his absolute favorite teacher. He's so excited that I'm having you on. And he told me, like, at the beginning of the semester that you emailed him saying that you missed having him in class.
Well, it was the first, dare I call him a groupie? He had was in my class 3 semesters in a row, right? And this semester, I think I've only got 8. I have a very small class. I'm not going to say how many in it in case the provost is listening. And it's a very small class, and he's not in it, and I'm having a hard time getting them to talk. And your boyfriend was always good for that. And all you kids listening out there, your faculty really do like you to ask questions and to talk. 90% of us do, the majority of us. So, don't be intimidated by asking a question or pointing something out in class. It makes for a better class for everybody. I do enjoy just talking and lecturing, clearly. But having a discussion is a lot more fun.
Yeah, and I know that my boyfriend has no lack of discussion skills.
No fear.
None at all. Kind of the opposite of me, if we're being honest. But that's so funny. But
who's got the radio show?
Exactly. I'm going to tell him to listen specifically just to that part right there, because that was so funny. So I know that you teach a class talking about culture in America. What do you focus on in that class?
Well, by way of background, I went to Ole Miss for my graduate degrees, my MA and my PhD, and I did straight history, but also did a lot of culture. They've got a big center for the study of Southern culture. So I've always been interested in culture. For the American culture class, it's actually labeled social and intellectual history. We try to... we start about 1830 with, I do a little bit in the colonial period, but basically, I try to look at what people enjoy. Games, sports, plays, literature, culture. Culture is an amorphous term to start with, right? And so I try to look at popular culture, and so more entertainment and enjoyable things, things that people are enjoying at the time, and look at why they're enjoying it and where they've come from. So we do go from the colonial period all the way up till today. It covers a broad range in 14 weeks, so we clip right along, right? They're high points, and but we do cover a lot of ground.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot of content. So I'm curious, what was the culture in the colonial period?
Right. Well, so everybody likes some kind of play and some kind of entertainment, but it varied by where you were. So, we think of the Puritans as very dour, very serious. There's a famous historian, Edmund Morgan, who wrote a big history of the Puritans in the 1930s, 1940s. But he said the definition, I believe it's Morgan, said the definition of a Puritan is the worry that someone somewhere is having fun. Right? So we have this popular image. People think, oh, that guy on the Quaker Oats guy, the Quaker Oats box, he's a Puritan. Frowning, right, black and white. Of course, right, he's not a Puritan. He's a Quaker, hence the Quaker Oats. But Puritan play was, Puritans do play. They like to sing. They did not, because they're strict biblical literalists, there's no instruments. So there's nobody carrying the tune. So that, I've always wondered how that would work, right? But the games are really important, but they were, I'm forgetting the word, but they were educational. Right, you were playing games that were teaching you skills that were going to be useful, right? So I don't think they did axe throwing, but they certainly did arrow shooting, right, and running, throwing. I mean, these kind of skills that a hunter or that somebody defending would need to have, right? Whereas Virginians, so play had a purpose. Whereas in the Chesapeake, Virginians are a whole different kind of people. Folks that moved to Virginia are a whole different kind of people from a different part of England. And it's about the play for play's sake. It's about fun, and it's about competition. They're incredibly competitive in Virginia. So bear baiting, cockfighting, horse racing, boxing, foot racing, right? Card games, dancing. Dancing was seen as in some ways, a competitive sport. And what you're competing for, of course, is a woman with money. Nothing more attractive than a woman with money, right? Washington was a well-known dancer. Well-known as an excellent dancer. Martha did not like to dance, so Washington would be on the dance floor the whole night because everyone wanted to, he's a giant of a man at the time period, 6'3", right? Everybody wanted to dance with Washington, and so he was busy out on the dance floor.
That's so funny. I have never heard any of that, I will say, but it's funny to think that they kind of viewed games as something that's supposed to teach you something, because I feel like most games nowadays are not that. Like, it's just for fun.
That's interesting. What is it? There's some movie about this, but it seems to me. But video games. What are video games teaching young guys? I mean, we do have a whole building in Las Vegas of young men and women sitting around flying drones around the world.
Yep.
Right? But yeah, that idea that it should be didactic, that's the word, that everything should have a lesson in it, right? But you think about, team sports are really important for teaching cooperation, for teaching sportsmanship, for teaching roles, right? Stay in your lane, do your job. The team won't win. I mean, have you ever played youth soccer where you've got one good kid who tries to play the entire, right? And, it doesn't work, and everybody ends up hating that good kid, and the good kid hates everybody else, right? And so a good coach comes in and mixes all, champs that down, right? And so that you've got to work as a team, right? I mean, you're learning life skills. You may not see, that's the thing, right? You're having fun, so you don't know you're learning these life skills.
Yeah, that that makes a lot of sense. I mean, there's a lot to learn from sports nowadays, for sure. In the least, like you said, being a team player, learning how to cooperate with others. But would you say, was sports as big of a part of the culture as it is now?
No. And I say this because people were so much busier, and it's harder to take time or be interested in a competitive sport if you've already put in a 17 or 18-hour day. Although, right, and so sports revolved more around festival days and tended to be individual sports up until the mid 1800s, early 1800s, right? The first sort of professional, as far as I know, the first professional sports league is English football.
Wow.
But part of this and these team sports, in part, come out of urbanization. And you start to get bigger towns, so you've got bigger groups of people to play. You know, it's funny, we're talking about families. My great-grandfather had, my grandmother had 4 brothers, and she grew up near all her family, so there were 5 other cousins, so they were a baseball side, right? And the 9, all the cousins played baseball together. But you know, they were all close by, living in a lumber camp, you know, a lumber town. So it's harder when you're on the farm and spread out to get. And so when you do come together for a festival or something, it's going to be individual sports, right? Pig wrestling, pole climbing, pole throwing, like the tabor toss they do at the Highland Games. And if you think about the Highland Games, those certainly are very old. They're all, again, individual sports. They're not team.
Yeah, that is very interesting how it went from an individual to like a team.
Right. I mean, we still have lots of individual sports.
Yeah.
But team sports seems to predominate. But of course, in an urban society, in an industrial society, teamwork becomes way more important than if you're out there with the plow and the ox by yourself.
Yeah. So, to me, at least, I would not assume that there was much culture going on in the colonial period, because in my mind, all they're doing is like working and trying to stay alive. Mm-hmm. But it's interesting to me that you mentioned that there was so much that kind of probably founded a lot of what our culture is today.
Well, there's always some kind of culture going on. It just we don't always recognize it, right? And so, you know, there's a lot of literature being produced in New England, but it's all journals and it's all biblical, religious, right? You know, New Englanders enjoyed going to a 4 or 5 hour sermon. Then they enjoyed getting a printed copy of it and rereading it.
Wow.
I guess some of it is what options you have, but also it's the attitude of the society, right? And it seems we've got a very much of a I want what I want now kind of society today. People don't really seem to focus on the future or the long term. The afterlife is not a big thing, I guess. I don't know. It's hard to keep up these days. What's that going on?
Yeah, that's definitely true. People, at least I would say in my generation, probably are not concerned with what's going to happen in the future. They're just kind of like, what am I doing in this moment type of thing. And that can be bad. It can have some negative effects.
Well, I mean, you know, I really believe in balance in life. All things in moderation. Try to balance things. When I was young, I think when I was young, I'm a natural redhead, so I was a hothead, and I could be extremist. And so I've worked hard over my life to try to bring some balance and be a little bit more moderate. Now, I have no idea where that was going. Oh, but I was thinking about the future, right? And I talk about this in the survey class. George Washington was obsessed with fame. He wanted to be famous, right? And his hero was a ancient Roman named Cincinnatus, who may or may not live. We're going to go with he lived. But, Cincinnatus was famous being called away from his farm to lead the legions and defeat an invading army. And then they offered him the monarchy. This is during the Republic period. They offered him all of this power, and he turned it down to go back to his plow. So Cincinnatus lives in the Republic period. So we're talking, before BC, right? Julius Caesar's about 0. And Dr. Holman, our ancient historian, is probably going to be listening to me and going to get corrections. But here, Washington, over 1,700 years later, was talking about Cincinnatus. Fame to Washington was the ages remembering you. And indeed, here we are sitting talking about him, right? What do you think fame means to people today?
Probably being famous on Instagram or social media, any of the social media forms, I would say. Having a video that goes viral or anything like that.
Right. We all want our 15 minutes of fame.
Yeah.
Right? Hey, y'all, watch this. Get one of those moments, right? Which is not long-term planning because, you get your 15 minutes of fame and then you burn out. How many people, right? How many people are famous for 15 minutes and then forgotten? And trust me, in, another 20 years, going around showing kids your TikTok video that went viral in 2023, those kids are not going to be impressed. Now, start a new country.
Yeah, like my little sister, she's 9. I always forget her age, but she's 9, and I can't imagine what it's going to be like for her, what the culture's going to be like as regarding fame, because there's already so many people that are trying to be famous on YouTube and things like that, and that is just not everybody can be famous.
No, and it has gotten so that younger and younger kids, right, are trying to be influencers. And I mean, I don't know about you, but now that I'm close to 60, I'm not taking advice from 13-year-olds. Usually we'll probably do the opposite. But at some point, when does this run out? Okay? Something that can't go on forever won't.
Yep.
So what is the breaking point with this? And I think we may be at it with social media. And I think, and I made this mistake, right? When I was a little kid, we ran around the neighborhood, and in the summer, we weren't supposed to be home till 6. Do not come home, right? It was a whole different world. And I wanted my daughter to be able to run around the neighborhood. And Jacksonville's a small town. Why not, right? So we got her a phone. That was a huge mistake because then, 2012, the smartphones come out.
Yeah.
Right. That was the game changer. So I think more parents are being a lot more restrictive about when they allow kids to have smartphones. And that, having a dumb phone, having a flip phone is just fine because you need it to get in touch with somebody, right? But, I mean, it has not been a positive, and we're seeing the negative consequences of it. The just epidemic of anxiety. What did I read yesterday? Somebody said the smartphone marked the point where kids stopped living and they started watching other people live. And that's a pretty sad thing. We used to talk about invalids having to watch other people have lives, people that were incapable of getting out on their own, right? And here we are doing it voluntarily. But there's room for it. I certainly use my smartphone. I don't use a lot of social media. I use the Facebook. It's all about moderation and control, right? And not becoming obsessive with it.
Yeah. Social media is scary, and I don't want to say I dislike social media because it has its good points, but I'm tired of it for sure.
Well,
I'm ready for us to move on to something else.
The what do you call it? The bloom is off the rose. The fascination, right? At some point, TikTok gives me extreme anxiety because of how short the videos are.
Yeah.
And I'm just getting into and thinking, oh, this is pretty cool. And then it stops and goes on to something else. So I don't have a TikTok account, so the Chinese do not know who I am. And the way that it shortens your attention span, too. I mean, they used to complain to us about TV, how TV had shortened kids' attention span. Now, social media has just blown it up.
Oh, yeah, for sure. It's definitely kind of scary on that. But I think this is a good point to take a little break. Here's some commercials, and when we come back, we'll continue down this little avenue of talking about culture and social media.
The Alabama Securities Commission regulates the investment industry in our state. Financial professionals like investment advisors, stockbrokers, and their products must be licensed. Criminals disguise themselves as financial professionals to defraud Alabamians out of their hard-earned money. Investment fraud can mirror the latest headlines, like finding a vaccine for the coronavirus or rebuilding communities damaged by storms. If the person is putting pressure on you to act now, this is a huge red flag. If it sounds too good to be true, it is. Protect yourself before you invest. Call 1-800-222-1253 to ensure that the person or company offering you the opportunity and their products are properly licensed. Again, call our investment hotline at 1-800-222-1253. Also, find free financial education material on our website at asc.alabama.gov. Paid for by the Investor Protection Trust and brought to you by the Alabama Broadcasters Association and this station.
If you're worried your friend may be struggling, remember, you don't have to be there to be there.
You could say, how are you, or get a fake tattoo. You could ask with an app if it works for you. You could write them a text or knit them a sweater. If you can't be together, you could write them a letter. Whatever gets you talking. Whatever gets you talking. You could chat on the game, kick off your flip-flops. You could ask on your couch while you binge watch. However you do it, you gotta ask a friend. And if they don't share, you can ask again. Whatever gets you talking. Whatever gets you talking.
Reach out to a friend about their mental health. Learn how you can help at seizetheawkward.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council, American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, and the JED Foundation.
I'm Danny Schaefer, lifestyle content creator. My little brother had these piercing blue eyes, like the ocean. He was just 33 when we lost him to an accidental opioid overdose.
My name is Darren Waller. I had it made, living my dream playing professional football. Then my life hit rock bottom. I had an accidental opioid overdose.
I felt this shame, this stigma. Everyone knew, but no one talked about it.
I felt completely isolated. My family didn't even know. I refused to stand by and watch without doing everything I can to change the stigma.
If you know someone taking opioids, have a safety plan and talk about it.
It can happen to anyone you know or love. It happened to me.
I'm sharing Scott's story because reversing the silence can help save lives.
Let's help put a stop to opioid overdoses being a leading cause of accidental death in America.
Be prepared. Learn how at reversedsilence.org.
Okay, everyone, we are back, and we're just going to keep talking with Dr. Paul Beasley, talking about whatever comes to our mind. We're kind of talking about culture, but I think talking about social media is an important part of culture.
It is, and it's become, different media platforms, different types of media have really pushed culture and had dramatic influences on culture. And I'm just going to give a shout out now that we come back to the commercial to my daughter Virginia, who just tuned into us in Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Aw, yay. Tell her thank you for tuning in.
Go Gophers. But like the impact of the newspaper on culture initially, and in many ways, newspapers and baseball, newspapers and college sports, particularly football, really worked together because newspapers relied on politics and business news and had nothing over the weekend. And college sports and high school on Friday nights, colleges on Saturday, pro on Sunday, gave newspapers something to fill up the press over the weekend. I had the radio, the phonograph, the record player, the movie projector, the smartphone. All right, they've all really changed culture, pushed culture forward in new ways, so that it's never been so democratic. The ability for anyone to make something, a short movie, to give offer their opinion. It's never been easier at any time in history to get that out into a potentially large audience. And I don't know how many people are listening to us. I know there's at least, you're right, your mother's listening and my daughter's listening, so there's two of them. That we can broadcast this right all over the world, effectively through the internet. People could be listening to us anywhere, right?
Yeah.
It really changes the scope, and so who has control, right? There aren't any gatekeepers because anybody can put up anything. I mean, this sort of gets to the Supreme Court case that's going on, the Texas and Florida laws about how much responsibility social media platforms have. But on the flip side, no gatekeeper means that we've just got this flood of videos and opinions and news, this huge flood of information coming at us with nobody filtering, with nobody editing. And so that also is now all upon us. And that's quite difficult. I mean, because it's not a natural skill. It's not something that an 8-year-old knows what is fake or what has been produced, right? I mean, this is where a lot of the anxiety comes from, is you're looking at somebody live a perfect life, not realizing that you're looking at one little sliver of their life, a carefully controlled portrayal of that. And it's easy for us to take that as their whole lives, not realizing what goes into it beforehand or what struggles, right, that they have. And then we wonder why that isn't our life, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But it has the opportunity for all sorts of, right? Who was it? The Australian band, One Dimension, One Direction?
One Direction, they're
Maybe.
from England?
Are they from England? I think they might be from Australia.
I think they're from England. I can't look. I will Google it.
Are they, look at this, right? Are they the ones that were doing YouTube videos and got discovered? Or am I thinking of some other...
I think that's how they started, is like doing YouTube videos a long time ago. They were also on the X Factor in England, but they did also do YouTube before that.
Because are they the ones that Simon Cowell put together as a boy band?
Yes,
right.
yes,
okay.
yes.
Well, there's some other group that was 5 Seconds of Winter. Oh no, 5 Seconds of Summer.
Oh,
they're
yes.
Australian.
Maybe.
They're the YouTubers.
You're quizzing my boy band knowledge.
Right. Well, and I miss naming them too, just to get my daughters go. It used to make her so upset. But I think
yes, they are from Australia. 5 Seconds of Summer.
Yeah, and they were doing YouTube videos, and somebody saw them and signed them to a record contract. I mean, That's like the famous story. There was an actress. Actresses used to hang out in a drugstore in Hollywood at the lunch counter, right? Go in and have a soda and or a sandwich and hope that a director would come in. And somebody was discovered at the lunch counter, but those discoveries are not very often like that, right?
Yeah.
And for 3 guys in a garage band in Australia to then get a worldwide, right? Those stories just don't happen, and I don't think that one happens without social media.
Yeah.
So it's more democratic in that there's an opportunity for everybody. But on the flip side, with no limits, no gates, you just get so much garbage.
Oh, so much. Like, kind of what you're talking about how everybody can make content. It was probably about a year ago, Apple made an ad that was one of their customers shot a movie on their iPhone, and they put snippets from that movie and was like created on the iPhone. And it's just like almost everybody has a phone. If you don't have an iPhone, you have some type of phone, and anybody can do that. And it's just kind of, like you said, it's good and bad. You get a lot of good stuff, but you also get a lot of garbage, a lot of things that nobody wants to hear.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's probably true just of life, There's a lot of chaff out there to get to the wheat.
Yeah.
And for those of you who don't know, chaff is the worthless outer shell around the wheat grain. I'm always surprised by what people don't know. I mean, that's the other thing, is that there's so much information available that people don't have necessarily a common body of knowledge.
Yeah.
Right? A lot of people love reading fan fiction. Right? Okay, but there's so much fan fiction out there, and then you don't read sort of the classics that give you a basis as an educated person, right? There's some level that we can all, when you go to a dinner party, right, there ought to be something that everybody's read.
Yeah.
That we can all talk about, right? And instead, I guess maybe it's a TikTok video everybody's seen.
Yeah. That's another thing, is people just don't read as much anymore. But yeah, and I think that's probably because people's attention spans are so short that nobody wants to sit down and read a book anymore. And now I think a lot of people are doing audiobooks, which, I mean, that's fine. That's a fine source of consuming media, but it's different than like actually sitting down and reading a book, at least to me.
Right. My parents are huge audiobook fans. But, they'll drive a couple, 3 hours regularly. And so, rather than listen to the radio, which they ought to be because radio's awesome, but they'll put in an audiobook. My problem is that people reading to me is a sign it's time for me to go to bed.
Yeah. I understand that.
Did you grow up with your parents? Did your parents read to you before you went to sleep?
Yeah.
Till how old do you know?
I do not remember, but I know that they did. But I don't think it ever really put me to sleep. But I kind of relate to that because now I listen to podcasts to kind of go to sleep. And so it's like now if I turn on a podcast during the day, my brain is automatically making me sleepy.
Right. My dad used to sit in the hall between my room and my brother's room and read to us every night.
Wow.
So there's all these things that I've not read myself, but, I had read to me. And loved them. And he'd read repeatedly, like Watership Down. He read that to us a couple, 3 times. And Huck Finn, a couple, 3 times for that, too. But that you should, where's the common culture? Where are the common themes? And we celebrate diversity as we should, and I love all sorts of different cultural takes. That's what makes things exciting. That's what makes life exciting, right? But what brings us back together? And I was actually thinking about this, I think, this morning, while I went to get a kolache. also known here as a pig in a blanket, but they're ginormous pigs in blankets that are Czech in origin. I'm getting my kolache, and I was thinking, what brings us together? We really don't have anything that brings us together culturally. And then I realized, of course we do. It's Taylor Swift.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I can't even argue with that. I would say a lot of what unites, at least in my generation, is TV. At least, this might be a little biased because of my friends, but we all watch the same TV shows and movies, and it's a lot of references. And I would say for my generation that almost everyone has seen the show The Office, and that is something that has such a cultural impact.
Right?
Like
The
when
Office.
everyone has seen a show.
Have you ever seen the English version of The Office?
I've seen one episode and I turned it off. It's terrible.
It's so much different.
It's
right?
so bad.
But that gets to the way that different groups of people have different humor.
Yeah.
Right? Find different
British
things
people
with
find that hilarious.
Yeah. Even though it is so hard. It's really harsh.
Yeah, no.
The
not
guy,
for me.
guy that plays Michael is just, he's not like a bumbling idiot. He's just like cruel.
Yeah, like mean. Like I said, one episode turned it off. Not for me.
So the English like that, and then they like slapstick. A lot of Monty Python is just slapstick. We talked about
Yeah.
in the history department having a list of mandatory films you had to watch before you could take a history class. Because a lot of us, there's been a fair amount of generational changeover, but the majority of us, I think, in the history department will reference Holy Grail.
Yeah.
And in the culture class last semester, I was stunned to find out that only one student had seen Rocky Horror.
And it was Hayden.
No, Hayden said he had not seen Rocky
Oh.
Horror Picture Show. Has he seen it?
I don't know, but I would assume he watches a lot of movies.
No, it was Ollie Hart was the only
Oh,
one that,
wow.
right? Ollie, who won the top award for the student symposium
Yeah,
on
wow.
her history of hip hop. She has seen Rocky Horror. Hey, that's like something we need to bring to campus. Every student should see Rocky Horror. It's pretty awful as a movie.
Yes.
But it's got some memorable songs and
Yeah.
it's got some quotable lines. And, it's got Meatloaf.
I've seen it. I don't remember it, but I know I've seen it at some point.
Do you remember if you were there with everybody acting out the scenes?
No.
The spray bottles, the toast.
Yeah. I don't
so-
remember at all, but I know that I've seen it at some point. And it
well,
sounds so familiar to me.
And it's funny, right? What becomes a cultural touchstone,
Yeah.
like Rocky Horror, or like Wizard of Oz, which when it came out was a flop because adults saw it as a children's movie. There was no interest in going to see a children's movie, and children were terrified by it.
Oh, yeah, it's so scary.
Well, those flying monkeys are scary.
All of it
Or
is
that
scary
witch
to
is.
me.
And yet, look how important it's become, right? I mean,
Yeah.
this has become the Halloween, it plays nonstop around Halloween, but it's something that pretty much every American has seen at least once, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of movies like that. Like me and my grandmother, my Nana, a few years ago, I think it was right after COVID, our drive-in movie theater was playing like the best movies from the last decades. And it was a back-to-back of Dirty Dancing and Footloose. And I was the youngest person there.
Were you really?
Yes, and I love those movies, but it's so funny how like that is such a part of culture. Like movies.
Right.
And a lot of people are surprised when I say that I love those movies or even seen those movies.
I've never seen Dirty Dancing.
Oh, that's your homework for today.
I saw Footloose once. Yeah, I've had an eclectic list of movies I've seen. I've watched a lot of stuff in black and white.
Oh, wow. I don't have the patience for that. Like I said, attention span. It's black and white. It's putting me to sleep.
Yeah. Well, they're talking now, like, I think it's Amazon, Netflix, one of them. They're telling the show writers, scripts are being sent back saying there's not enough second screen time. And what they are looking for is that people don't want to actually sit down and watch a show. They want to sit down and watch a show and scroll through their phone.
Yeah.
So it can't be so involved that you can't also look at your phone, because you will look at your phone, and when you look up, you don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
So I've found that a good way to get off on the weekends, if I'm looking at my phone too much, or at night I just need to put it down, I'll watch something in a foreign language that's got subtitles. Because then you have to,
you have to pay
read
attention.
the subtitles, or you don't know what's going on, right?
Yeah.
And so you can't be reading your phone.
That is a little life hack there. That is so funny. Yeah, no, that's definitely a thing, and that's something that annoys me. Is it like with my friends? If we're all watching a movie, don't talk. Don't be on your phone. And that's just something that people don't understand now. Like, I've went to movie theaters and seen people will be on their phone, and I'm like, why are you doing this?
Yeah.
At all? Like, you're not even. And that's, like, I always say I hate my generation for that.
Well, we have bad cultural awareness. That's like nobody has any home training. Like, no. We have spent so much time talking about focusing on you doing you making the most of you. We don't spend nearly enough time talking about thinking about others.
Yeah.
And yes, you can do something. Should you do it? Just because you can doesn't mean you should. And you got your phone on screen on bright, and you're watching a movie, and you light you're in the theater, and you turn it on your darn screen. What?
Yeah.
Hey. Oh, I've got to do this. Well, what about the rest of us around you? Right?
Yeah.
You need to be. It's not just you anywhere. I grew up with siblings, right? So I'm the oldest.
I'm also the oldest.
Yeah.
I only have two younger ones, but
I had two younger ones too, and that was something that you learn when you're the oldest, that there are other people that your parents have got to take care of. You can get your own breakfast. Your little brother or little sister, has to be put up in the high chair and fed, right?
Yeah.
And so you're going to have to wait. You're either going to have to do it yourself, or you're going to have to wait, right?
Yep.
And
for sure.
And life isn't always about having what you want, when you want it, then. That's a lot of disappointment. But it is. Life is a lot of disappointment. But what history shows is that the people that are really successful are the ones that pick themselves up. That accept that there's going to be a lot of disappointment, but it doesn't get them. You can be down and not beaten.
Yeah.
Right? You get knocked down, you pick yourself back up again. And you just have to keep doing that over and over again. And at your age, it can be very overwhelming. You get knocked down and feel like you've been really knocked down, right?
Yeah.
And you just got to keep remembering that other people have made it. Other people have been through this, right? We're not reinventing the wheel here. It only feels like we're reinventing the wheel when you're 17 to 22, really to 25. But a lot of people have been through this before. You have to go through it yourself, but you have to know that you can get through it.
Yeah. So we are nearing the end, and I think that if
really?
Yeah, unfortunately, I told you it goes by fast.
It does.
So if you can just kind of give one final comment, or what you think people should take away, anything like that.
One word for you. Plastics.
Elaborate.
Okay, it's a movie reference.
Oh.
Have you seen The Graduate?
No.
Need to see The Graduate.
Okay, I'll add it to my list.
And you've got to see The Graduate. The best part of The Graduate is Simon and Garfunkel's soundtrack. Right, Mrs. Robinson. And as college students, it's really interesting because the main character has just graduated from college, and everybody wants to know what he's going to do. And so what he ends up doing is having an affair with his parents, with the wife of his dad's best friend.
Wow.
little May, December, but then falls in love with the daughter.
Oh.
But it's a great movie. But one of the guys comes up to him and says plastics, which also then, right, it's a double movie reference because it goes back to It's a Wonderful Life. And have you seen that one?
Yes.
Okay, so George's good friend, the one that's always doing the donkey ears, is in plastics and tries to get George in plastics. So, and of course, microplastics, they're all in your water. So be careful what kind of...
Yeah, no, that's true. That's so funny. You're so funny. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Beasley, for coming on. To any of our JSU students, take one of Dr. Beasley's history classes. You'll never fail to be entertained. Trust me on that.
Well, I hope so. I hope you learned something, too.
But, yeah, thank you all so much for tuning in. Follow on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Spotify in case you missed it. The episode will be posted on Spotify and YouTube as soon as possible, as soon as I can edit it and get it up. But thank you all so much for listening. And until next time, this is Chloe Cooley signing off.